Yo, what's good, everybody? It's Diari back on here again. So, a couple things that happened last week. Wanted to touch on them. Uh, Apologize for not streaming for a while, but been busy trying to take care of some business. But we back on here. That being said, definitely want to talk about what went down with Apple last week. So they recently announced that they were going to offer a savings account for their ecosystem, paying out 4.15% APY, which is definitely a game changer for anybody that has an Apple phone or anybody that invests in Apple. Why do we say that? Well, a few things. One, 4.15 is about 10 times the national average. So anybody that uses an Apple phone or is in their ecosystem can park money there and benefit from a higher rate of return instead of having their money sitting around the bank earning less than half a percentage point. So Apple Pay also stated that you can sign up fairly simple. There's no minimum uh, as far as having to deposit your money. Also, when you do that, you have the ability to earn daily cash rewards, which automatically go into the account, right? So that gives you even more opportunity to save more money. Anybody that's an investor like myself, um, clearly that's a net benefit for Apple shareholders because that's going to generate more eyes, more money, more bodies towards the Apple ecosystem. So anybody that has a Apple iPhone, right, they're going to be more tempted to leave that money there instead of giving it to competitors such as credit unions or the banks. It also gives Apple more instant liquidity so they can go ahead and make other things such as acquisitions, research and development. They can also buy back shares. So it gives them a instant additional stream of revenue. Goldman Sachs, which is backing up the Apple savings account, will obviously get a percentage of those investments. And we know Apple is one of the top two leading cell phone providers in the world. So the fact that you'll have more money pouring into there, Goldman Sachs's income will increase and their pockets will get bigger as part of as part of as part of this joint effort that they have. Um, I think it's definitely going to change how people do business over the next several years with banking institutions. You're going to have Apple, Google, and um, a lot of your other smartphone competitors trying to link up with other financial institutions to get a bigger slice of the pie. That being said, on the topic number two, here recently, the FHA just announced that they're going to allow a 40-year mortgage. Yeah, you heard me right, a 40-year mortgage. So they're touting this, the government that is, saying that, okay, we're going to definitely increase the traditional mortgage, which is 30 years. We're going to add another 10 years onto it. And they're selling this under the pretense that people will be able to get a lower payment and they'll be able to afford getting into a home because technically now we're in a housing crisis. There's not enough people that can afford to buy a home, right? So obviously, HUD is going to be heavy involved in this. Uh, FHA is going to be involved in this, and we all can just go back to when uh, we had the global crisis, 2019, 2020, and a lot of people couldn't pay their mortgages due to job loss, due to only having one income in the household, and as a result, a lot of people lost their homes. They weren't able to pay their rent. So this is one attempt by the powers that be to get people to stay um, liquid in the housing market to where they can actually pay their monthly rent or mortgage. You're going to see a lot of people refinancing their mortgages. You're going to see more people that traditionally couldn't afford a mortgage because they're loosening the standards yet again. People are going to be enticed to buy a home, the quote unquote American dream, right? With one income in the family budget, it's already a challenge for most Americans. Um, Two, that's for most part getting by, right? Um, the 40-year mortgage is set to go into effect on May 8th. So when that goes down, you're going to have a lot of people applying for these loans. So to the average American, right, you think that's a good deal. But if you take, say, your typical $100,000 starter house, right? And let's say you put down 4% for a payment, and interest rates right now are hovering around 6.5. Okay. So your loan amount would be $96,000. On a traditional 30-year mortgage, right? You'd still be paying PMI. Let's say you have $1,000 a year for house insurance and you don't have a monthly HOA, right? With those numbers alone, your total mortgage payment would be $982 a month, right? And after 360 payments, that $100,000 starter home, which again, that's the entry level home, you'd be looking at total payments of $335,408, three times the amount of the value of the home, right? Now, check this out. Let's say we bump that up to 40 years and keeping everything the same as far as PMI, homeowners insurance, and your property tax, right? Yeah, your payment will go down by about 20, 30 bucks, but now you've got 480 payments, right? Which is 40 years. And now you're paying $429,250 on a $100,000 home, which to me is utterly ridiculous, right? So now you go back to that previous amount of 335, you're paying almost an extra $100,000 in interest alone. So you're basically you're not even drowning at this point. You're being buried in debt. And again, the powers that be are selling this to make it, more affordable each month, but long term, you are basically being saddled with debt. And if you can barely afford to pay the mortgage by yourself, right? On a 30-year loan, a 40-year loan is not going to make it any better. And when you get ready to, refinance it or move out down the road, you can't afford a bigger home or a nicer home. So the problem is not affordability. The problem is income. People that don't have the income for housing, like most Americans, live beyond their means. It's almost like when you go buy a car, right? And the dealer doesn't ask you, what's your maximum budget. They always ask you what you want your monthly payment to be. Why? Because they know they can stretch that out to appease the ego of the buyer, and the buyer just wants the car. They don't look on the back end. They look strictly at the front end. As long as I can afford the payment, cool. Not knowing that over time, whether it's a 3-year loan or 5-year loan or 7-year loan, I think now they're having 10-year car payments now. I mean, you've bought the car several times over. So you have to ask yourself, is this really beneficial to um, prospective homeowners? to sell them on the pretense that they can make a lower payment? Or would it make more sense to say, okay, how can we increase your income? How can we increase your assets? Uh, should we have a push for two income households? That way, the household itself can live within a budget and not be stretched out too thin in case something happens to one of the parties in the home. But that's just my opinion. Um, in other news, right, uh, the president has been really pushing for social uh, responsibility, social credit, right? And so that made me go back and look on things that have been happening with various banks and institutions. So a couple years ago, PayPal and other companies announced that they were going to be working with agencies sharing information, right? Like Facebook, TikTok, uh, all of your social media outlets, tracking what you're going to be doing with your money and what you're using it for. Microsoft is also a part of that, right? So you say, how does that affect me? Well, in China, they've already started doing this. Um, Basically, what they're doing over in China is they're not only taking your financial credit, but now they're looking at your social credit, a holistic assessment of an individual or a company's trustworthiness, right? They're looking at your travel tendencies, your employment tendencies, right? They're looking at how you relate to other people. Do you donate to charities, right? Do you tip? All those things come into play and they compile a social credit score. And so, with that score, that gives other people, the government, and other businesses the ability to make a social decision to see if they can do business with you. Um, if you're not a social person, right? If you are strictly dealing with finances and not dealing with moralistic issues, that spells bad news for you, right? As an individual or as a business. More importantly, as a business, you can potentially play the game of, well, I have to donate to charity, I have to give back, I have to make sure that we follow a certain code based on the flavor of the day or month or year of who's in office, what's politically correct, what's impolitically correct. Um, there's an episode that came out a few years ago on Black Mirror. Great show, highly recommended. But basically, it dealt with social credit scores. The protagonist in that episode basically mood operated and lived day to day based upon how she was viewed in society. She basically had social media clout, and that social media clout, when she dealt with other people or businesses, was always checked. So the higher the rating, then the higher her ability to get nicer things, whether it was socially, financially, or in the workplace. And so the character had a bad string of misfortune and her social score fell. And it fell to the point where she was placed in a position that she looked down upon other people in the beginning of the episode. Now she found herself in those same shoes. So it changed her perspective, her outcome in life on how she really treated people and what really was important, what really mattered. It wasn't necessarily about what society saw her as or what she was trying to portray. It was more about how you really treated people, what your really core values, right? It didn't matter that you faked it till you made it. You basically were a good person. You were a decent human being. And so that episode, I definitely suggest people check out. Again, Black Mirror season 3, episode 1, definitely ties into the whole social credit, merging with your financial credit. Some we're definitely going to see coming down the pipeline. Um, Next topic that came up, FedNow is set to launch July 2023. Um, it's basically the United States central bank's system to enable settlements. Traditionally we have ACH where, you know, you have institutions where they share information, they share finances, and debts are settled. Well, we've had the big elephant in the room, Bitcoin and other crypto that the government has been trying to look at, work out all the crooks and nannies to see how can we benefit from this. So now they are currently doing test runs with smaller institutions and some of the bigger players, and it's projected by July over 30 to 50% of most banks will allow FedNow. The upside that's being sold is it'll help the Fed maintain making funds immediately available, and it'll help Americans living paycheck to paycheck or small businesses with small cash flow uh, restraints get the money quicker and will free up capital. Well, that's a plus, but the downside of that is if you don't have money as an American, if your small business is not generating revenue, it doesn't matter how quick the funds come because it's not going to increase your overall income. It's going to benefit those that are collecting debts. It'll benefit those that have outstanding past due invoices because now they'll have the ability to access those funds. And if we go to a digital currency, which I will project will happen within the next 10 to 15 years, and that's being on the generous side, probably will be much sooner, then we will pretty much do away with physical currency. At that point in time, we'll just have digital currency. So if you have a debt with, say, your utility company, right? And you don't have the cash, your utility company could potentially sue you for a payment you don't have or your mortgage. And if you don't pay it, instead of going to court, right, they can just withdraw the money out of your account, no questions asked. So who's that really benefiting? The little guy, the average American, or is it benefiting uh, corporate America and Uncle Sam? So FedNow, I think, will dominate global payment systems. It's just a matter of time. Like I said, they're going to roll out in July. Still rolling out the hiccups and the nooks and crannies, but they'll probably have about 10,000 financial institutions that'll operate on the network, and over time, that's just going to steadily grow. Um, the key to that, though, is going to be: will people use it, right, or will they continue to use the system that they have now? There's going to be a real big push for Fed now over the next several months. You'll probably see more of it increasing, probably once July or August hits. Um, that's about all the financial news that happened. One of the things that happened on a social level, uh, Marquez Houston, who's a former member of R&B hip hop group in the '90s, Immature IMX, got interviewed a couple days ago, and he made a comment that he would not uh, have dated a woman his age because they usually come with baggage and kids. Now, keep in mind, Marquez Houston is a black man. He is in his 40s, and he has every right to express what his personal preference is, right? The article, and there's multiple articles that came out, but during the one he was interviewed on, he basically said that a woman with kids is a red flag, and he's entitled to that opinion. He said nothing against single women, but single mothers with children are a red flag. And he also said, you know, I don't prefer dealing with women that are older because they've just gone through things, they have baggage, and it can be a challenge. So his former bandmate, right, Young Rome, commented on what Marquez Houston had to say. He basically simped and pandered for his audience. This is what he said, and I quote. Uh, As a member of Immature, I would like to extend my sincerest apologies in regards to the insensitive statements made by my former group member, Marquez Houston. He said, "We were raised by a tribe of strong, independent women who face hardships we will never fully understand. Women today have enough battles to endure, including the policing of their bodies, equal pay in the workplace, and beauty standards. It is never okay to degrade one group of women in order to praise another. Black women in particular are often on the receiving end of the constant negative stereotypes they fight against daily." So here's my problem with that, or problems, right? And I'm probably going to go in for the next couple minutes. Who the hell are you to apologize for another man's personal opinions? If I have my opinions about what works for me, why would another man feel the need to apologize for what works for me, right? And then in his apology, he goes on to say, let's start it off. We were raised by a tribe of strong, independent women. Well, how did that work out for Gen X, right? That tribe of strong, independent women were basically boomer women, right? And they were the first ones to accept feminism, to fall for that goofy shit. They were the first ones to get Parenthood in the black community. They were the first ones to basically say, we don't want to follow traditional values. We want to do it on our own because we see other groups of women outside of the culture telling us what we should do. So we're going to do it. So he says they faced hardships we will never fully understand. Black men and Gen X understand it clearly because we were the children of those strong, independent women. We deal with the women that were raised by the boomers, are strong, independent women. Gen X women are strong, independent women 2.0. So I understand it fully, right? He said women today have enough battles to endure, including policing of their bodies, right? Which is capped because women compete with other women all the time. It's not a man body shaming. We see more and more women when they go out in public, look at other women, look at their clothes, look at their hair, look at their shoes, look at their figures, and they critique more than the men do. They're allowed to. Men can't critique women out in public. Women do that. Black women specifically. Equal pay in the workplace, right? There's never going to be quote unquote equal pay because the equal opportunity is given. The problem is women don't do the same jobs that men do overall. They seek jobs of comfort, office jobs. Now, I'm not saying that women can't do them because they can. Those opportunities are available. But overall, women typically don't apply towards jobs of infrastructure. Women don't stay in the workplace as long as men do. Women traditionally take time off if they have children or they have families, right? So you're never going to have equal outcome. Beauty standards is something that women are judged on. So that's not a hardship. That's a part of being a woman. He went on to say it is never okay to degrade one group of women in order to praise another. He didn't degrade a group of women. He just said that's not his preference. And he stated why that wasn't his preference. And last I checked, if we're keeping score, we all look at people and we say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. Women do it all the time. They say they want a guy that's taller. They want a guy that makes more money, a guy that does this. They have their standards. But yet this dude simps and is pandering towards women like men can't have their own standards, right? He said black women in particular are often on the receiving end of constant negative stereotypes they fight against daily. Well, gee, really? Are they stereotypes if it's true when it comes to marriage, when it comes to out of uh, marriage babies, when it comes to Planned Parenthood and deleting 1,000 kids a day over the past 20, 30 years? Is it a stereotype when we see the stuff that went down in Chicago last week and you have a bunch of kids out in the streets with no parental discipline or guidance that were predominantly raised by single, strong, independent households? And as a result, you have these kids out in these streets running amok, destroying property, vandalizing, assaulting people. Is it a negative stereotype when you have these women wearing skittle colored hair, caterpillar lashes, dressing very inappropriate and provocatively out in public, but at the same time want men to protect and provide for them and not judge them based upon how they look? So I get it. You know, Young Rome has a fan base. He wants, people to come and support him when he performs. But pandering to women, hoping that they're going to provide Scooby snacks and they're going to, you know, put him on a higher level because he's quote unquote defending black women is BS, right? Yeah, there were some single mothers that supported his group while they performed. But to say that because I have an opinion and I have a preference is disrespect, that's not disrespect. It's called having a preference. And he went on to say that Marquez Houston's views don't reflect those of the group. Well, no, that's a group view, meaning all three of you would have made a joint statement. But those are his views and he's entitled to them, right? Just like if a woman knows a man is broke and he doesn't have money, she's going to say, I don't prefer a broke man. I prefer a man that has resources. Or if a man was out of shape, she would say, I don't prefer a man that's a slouch. Is that disrespecting men that or slouches, or is that saying that's her preference? Too many black men are still caught up in the fact that we have to pander and we can't have opinions when it comes to black women. And for another black man to tell another black man he's wrong for expressing himself is pretty messed up, right? It's male hyena like. Let me protect the queen hyena because I don't know any better. I'll even attack another one of a human being that looks like me just because the psyche of me catering and pandering to mama is unreal. So that being said, that's all I got for the events of last week. Just wanted to give my opinion, share my thoughts. If you gain something from it, learn something new, feel free to comment, like, subscribe. Um, be definitely posting some more content more frequently. Look forward to hearing what y'all got to say. Be safe. I'm out.